Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. New menu item has arrived to start the new year right, and we're well into it, and what a delicious menu it is. How about a spinach and feta savory egg pastry? Baked fresh daily, no doubt about that. Served warm, stuffed with eggs, spinach, and feta, all in a buttery, flaky crust. Part of the Tim Selects Everyday Value menu, including the everything bagel with cream cheese if you want, 4 cheese omelet bites, delicious, and red pepper and Swiss savory pinwheels, all starting at just $2.99. Now, there's no way to segue from that delicious menu item to what you've had to been dealing with over the last number of days here, Ray.
Right.
So I'm just going to hand it over to you, because here's the story of Ray Ferraro. And a pesky little critter called a raccoon. Anyway, go ahead.
If you've ever been around a raccoon, they're annoying. They're a little dangerous if you have dogs, and they are pesky, right? So we live in a place like right beyond the end of our backyard. We have a fence, but there's this wooded place. And there's all kinds of animals in there, right? And I don't even really know what's in there. I said all kinds of animals. I don't know what's in there. But anyway, our dog, Ollie, is losing his mind over the last couple of days. He's at the back door. He's barking like crazy. And usually he barks at the squirrels running across the fence. He thinks he's going to catch one of those, right? Like, no chance, right? Good one, Ollie. Anyway, so we look out, and there's this raccoon in the backyard, and Ollie is losing it. So now we can't leave him out there, because a raccoon he'll do damage to a dog of Ollie's size. So now we got him in the house. He's losing his mind. He's sitting on our little patio, like he's a foot from the door, right? So he can't even go out. I'm like, what the frick are we going to do here? So that happens a couple days ago. He comes back. Now we're looking around. Everything's okay. Ollie can go out. So yesterday, he gets outside. He goes about 10 steps and turns around and races back to the table. And he's right there. He's nose to nose with this raccoon. So we're like, what do we do? So I go out there and I grab him, which is not an easy task, and I bring him back inside. This raccoon now, he's just on the other side of the window. He's marked up like some animal has got him already.
Right.
So now he's in the yard. We don't know where he is. Turns out he's underneath some patio furniture. He chases Landon's dog. Like, it's mayhem here. So now I go out. I've got my golf club just in case I come across this thing.
Yeah,
but
why not?
But
now, do you choose a putter, a driver? Is it a sand wedge? What's the club of choice here?
Putter, because although shorter, maybe I could go to my fairway wood. I should maybe think of, but I'm like, so he crawls and climbs up the fence, and we see where he goes. So now, I called wildlife prevention, and they're like, "Oh no, we can't do anything about that." Like,
why would they?
And I'm like, what do you mean? So now we're barricaded in the house. So this morning I did hear a bunch of coyotes, and I wonder I wonder if they had a snack down there or something.
Cycle of life.
Hey, it's the way it goes, but not happy with this development, I got to tell you.
Well, so we had something similar, not quite as dramatic, right? Similar sort of scenario here. We've got forest around us and all that. So everything from possums to coyotes to the odd wolf that strolls by, like all of the nonsense. I have it here. But one of these critters, the raccoon family, crawled into the attic through
bad news,
fascia or whatever. Anyway, we got lucky in the sense that this thing had just got in there and then quickly got out within hours. So it hadn't nested or anything. I think it was a better part of $6,000 to then raccoon proof our house. Like in the eaves, make sure that you've got the mesh so that they can't come back. And I mean, what do? everybody around you, animal control, they shrug your shoulders and go, yeah, just don't touch it. You'll be fine. I don't want it living in my house.
Yeah, I don't need another mouth to feed. That's fantastic. Hey, now since you bring that up, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I think of you kind of like as prairie tough.
Yeah.
Like you've got that prairie toughness to you, but what I've seen today is a little city softness.
How so? What do you mean?
Is that the first shirt you've had on today?
No.
What happened to the other one?
I started with I started with a black hoodie because I was doing radio and some other stuff.
Right, sure.
And then I realized it was a Movember hoodie. Like it had the logo of Movember. So I'm like, geez, I got to do the podcast. I better hurry up. And then I went upstairs and I grabbed a nice Doer shirt. Real nice golf shirt, remember? High quality stuff. They don't fit me properly because it's a 2-button, golf shirt.
And you look like an 83-year-old guy with his chest hanging out. It was embarrassing.
Well, in fairness, this training regime that I'm on, I think it's only been a couple of weeks, but I think it's starting to slowly pay off. So it was hanging, and then there was bullying that took place, and I quickly went and changed my T-shirt. So
I got to say, when Rashog set in on you, I knew you wouldn't have the fortitude to stand up to that.
Well, fair enough. All right. Hey, by the way, we've got Darcy Kuemper,
one of the hottest goalies in the league.
Angeles Kings. Boy, that was a battle against the Oilers in the 1-0 Oilers win on Monday night. Both goalies terrific in that game.
You know what, Drake? So, I generally think 1-0 games suck. They're terrible. Yeah. That was a terrific game last night. It was
kind of had a playoff sense to it, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was an excellent game, and Darcy's had an amazing start to the season, kind of like the Kings, really. And so we'll get a chance. Former Red Deer Rebel, and we'll get a chance to talk to him.
Yep, he's going to stop by. So thanks to Darcy and the LA Kings because we've been dancing with this one for a couple of weeks. But schedules aligned, and we're happy to have him. Okay, let's get into the Tim Hortons headlines, where news earlier today, when I learned that John Klingberg is real close to an NHL return. And just as a refresher, hockey fans might recall, he had to have that hip resurfacing surgery in the fall of 2023. So it's been a while since he's been out. And he's worked hard to get himself to a place where there's no more testing, there's no more rehab. He's got to join a club and see if he's NHL worthy still at 32 years of age. And it's the same surgery that Jussi Puljujärvi had, that Patrick Kane of the Detroit Red Wings had. So there has been a level of success in the NHL. And I named 3 teams because they're all 3 Canadian clubs. And I named Toronto, Ottawa, and Edmonton as the 3 teams with the most interest among the 5 to 7 that are really keen on Klingberg. It sounds like Vancouver kicked tires, but didn't really explore it beyond that. So if you're the general manager, isn't this kind of not necessarily a free look, but are you intrigued enough in a veteran right shot defenseman and your intel from Newport and having a conversation directly with John is strong enough that you give him a chance? It's a worthy gamble, I think, for a lot of teams.
Well, I guess the toughest part would be trying to determine which part of his decline was injury related and which part was just natural decline, like that happens to every player. And everybody declines at different times. Like some guys decline at 37, right? And some guys at 27. So I would want to know that. He's never been an especially strong defender. He's not a big, strong guy. And so when his mobility is compromised, that's a big one for him. Because his game's going to be, he's got to move the puck, he's got to pass it, he's got to get it out of his zone with one quick move. And so the difficulty would be trying to determine, can that quickness come back with health? And I guess the deal, it's not like he's sitting there with a lot of leverage. I assume his deal would be close to the minimum, probably. He can't have bonuses, can he? Because he's 32. He can't have that until you're 35, right?
Correct.
So it would be a pretty low cost chance. I would think of it, I guess. I really would. again, you're now at halfway in the season, so actual money coming out. If it's $1 million deal, it's 500 grand, right? So I would take a look. I would,
Yeah.
and I guess I would be looking for a third pair, second power play, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the gamble comes, obviously, if he can't play, well, then you got to find a way to replace him, because it's almost more about the roster spot than it is the cap space. You can create the cap space, but all of a sudden, if you punt on a depth defenseman because you have to create a roster spot, well, now all of a sudden he doesn't pan out, and you're looking for that depth defenseman to find to plug a hole, right?
Well, I guess depending on what interest there is, and how deep the competitive market would be, and it might, if it's two teams, that's all it really needs to be. But what if you could get them in on a PTO?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen based on the interest.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's enough interest, then you can't get it. Then, that's what teams are going to have to. That's what teams decide all the time. Is, okay, I'm interested if I can get him in on a PTO, let him and see him for 10 days. And if there's two other teams, and the only way you can get them in is to sign them, then you might decide, nah, not for me. And those are decisions that they're going to have to work on on a daily basis. Yeah.
So that interest has been developing over the last couple of weeks. The management group's doing their due diligence, and now my source indicates that it's up to John, and he's going to take the next couple of weeks to determine, where he sees his best fit. And
so is that, are we talking, Drakes? Are we talking kind of then like around the Four Nations, somewhere around there?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Late? You get them in at that. If you get them in, and okay.
Yeah. End of January, and like everyone who has a choice, clearly he's going to choose to go to the team that gives him the best chance of not only playing but winning too, right? He's probably not going into a situation where he doesn't think the team has much of a chance, so that could factor into his final call as well. Brad Treliving on Monday, Ray, asked about his concerns with the Four Nations now less than 1 month away. And concerns over Auston Matthews and where he's at. And since his latest round of aggravation, he's actually come back and he's been pretty strong. I mean, no one was strong in the Hurricanes game. For the last 50 minutes of that, he was -6. Marner was -6, and they play Vancouver, and they can't generate anything there. So, again, back-to-back, not his greatest efforts, but prior to that, he had looked pretty good. So, is there a percentage less than 90%? I don't know why I picked that number, because no one is 100%, I guess. Is there a percentage of less than 90% where you, as Brad Treliving, or any general manager, as a player, a star player going to the Four Nations, is okay with that player going in to a very competitive event like this, if it may cost you in the long run?
No, there's not. I understand the player's desire, any player, not just Matthews, but to play in this event. It would be incredible fun. It would be super competitive. You haven't got to do it before. I get it. But, I mean, you pick 90%. I'm almost thinking it's almost more than that. If there's something that is a potential to be aggravated, I guess the player decides at the end of the day, but I would strongly make my position known that I'm a little uncomfortable with this. Yeah. And that would be, and again, that's whether it's Auston or anybody else. Because if you look at the players that are going to play in this event, there's not too many third liners in it. Anybody that's on one of these rosters is a significant player to whatever team they play for. It's pretty dicey. And it's funny, like in theory, you throw out when the teams are picked, oh yeah, if there's a health concern, they can replace players. But then when you get down to talking about a specific player, it feels like it's more important, right? Like it feels there's more gravity to it, as opposed to, oh yeah, if some guy gets hurt, so very, that would be a tough one. But I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to wait till a week before and make your evaluation then.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll shift it over to Ottawa, but your answer is likely very similar on Linus Ullmark, right? I mean, maybe even an easier call in
No,
Ottawa.
no,
You're not. Well, they do have Jacob Markstrom and they've got Gustavsson. I mean, I don't know if he's number 3, but he's one of the 3 goalies for
right.
Team Sweden. He's just on the ice. He's not even practicing with his team. And I think, did you say last week where I can't remember what the question was, but it was around surprise teams, and I happen to take Ottawa, as a playoff
Mhm.
push, and you said
Right.
Detroit, right? And then you instantly said, "Well, if Linus Ullmark isn't healthy, I don't like Ottawa's chances,"
Yeah.
and that applies more than ever. So I think you're right. I think that's one where Ottawa's got to step in and say, "Sorry, man, unless you're guaranteeing you're not playing, we need you to rest."
Yeah. It would be easy enough for Sweden to get through the tournament with the goaltending they have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And find someone else to be your third guy. The the fact that it's now I hope I'm not wrong here, but it's always been reported as his back, right? And like, am I correct there, Drakes? Like
yeah.
lower, like
Speculated, but I've
it's
heard the same.
speculated
Yeah,
back,
I'm not.
back
I'm not.
core, yeah,
Yeah,
back
yeah,
and core in that
yeah.
area. Man, like goalies they're so finely finicky tuned
Yeah.
that if that area is not right, they're just they're just not going to be able to play over and over and over again. And I know the young kids come in and done a nice job in a couple of back-to-back games for Ottawa,
Yeah.
but I felt when Ullmark was signed, he had the potential to be the biggest difference maker of any of the free agents.
No question.
And
Yeah.
and they just absolutely need him.
All right. How about this isn't doom and gloom, but there's been a bit of a negative tone to the start of headlines with the Four Nations. All kidding aside, we're talking about injuries. So how about some positive news that has developed in somewhat of a surprising way? Now, given the horrific way that the season started for the Columbus Blue Jackets, how about a
Mhm.
mid-season tip of the cap to
Oh,
Dean Evason and everyone associated with this organization on and off the ice? I don't know about you, man, but just seeing the Columbus Blue Jackets in the playoff mix and in the playoff fight brings a smile to my face. I didn't expect it. I don't know what I expected just because of all of us, everybody struggled to make sense of the loss
mm,
and the tragedy around the loss of the
right.
Gaudreau brothers. But in this case, for that group to rally from coaching to Sean Monahan being a point per game player, Zach Werenski, I mean, so many different great stories aside from the obvious cloud that still hangs over this team.
I am. I'm going to say I'm shocked by their success, given all that you've just talked about, and of course the start of the season could have gone a bunch of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
given what happened with Johnny and Matthew, and they came out of the gate and they seem to have this inspiration, and then you think that's going to fail or that's going to slide away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If I told you, give me the 5, I just looked it up here because I wanted to make sure. Give me the 5 highest scoring teams in the league.
Columbus wouldn't
Okay.
be one of them.
No. Washington, Winnipeg,
Yeah,
Tampa, Columbus,
I
Vegas.
know. I know.
Like it's
Yeah.
remarkable. And you know what's cool? They're 14-5 at home. That
Yeah.
frickin' cannon is going off all the time there. It's unbelievable. So Dean's
Yeah.
done a really good job. You knew there was going to be some aggression to that team. That's the way Dean coaches.
Yeah.
Zach Werenski is into the Norris conversation. I mean,
Absolutely is. Yep.
the top of the conversation is Makar and Hughes, and they might be on a
Mhm.
different planet, but Werenski's in it. He's had an amazing season to this point, and so
Yeah.
good for Columbus. And man, it seems like a market that is just waiting for the next step. Like it's always been, I think, one of those places you go to and you're like, oh, I didn't know it was
Yeah.
like this. They're
Yeah.
waiting for some sustained success. And Don Waddell, and I go back a long way with Donnie and Dean, of course, even longer. I guess, geez, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for them. They're good people, and glad that they've had this early success.
Yeah, and look, in the insider business, I'm excited about what might come down the road with the Columbus Blue Jackets because, again, it's not necessarily like Donnie Waddell feels like he has to reward the group, but he's also not going to ignore the fact that they've had a brilliant first half of the year. So they're definitely looking for a top four forward. Yes, they're looking for an upgrade on defense. And then, look, I mean, we don't know what they're going to do with Provorov. Do the numbers work to make sense to extend? Okay. Then you extend. Pretty good defenseman. If not, well, it goes into the hopper and you get something back that's going to be decent. Some uncertainty around Olivier, but he's such a unique skill set that I think that they're going to find a way to extend him. But again, just all the scenarios around this Columbus Blue Jackets team, I did not envision that we'd be talking about at the midpoint.
Now, I'm sure you said his name and that went past a bunch of people, but Olivier, he has punched his way into the place that you have to notice him, except that's not just what he does. No, he kills penalties. No. He's a really good player. I forget how many goals he's got now. He's had a tremendous start to the season. And the question becomes, what can you pay him? Because if he were just a player out on the market, he would do very well.
Oh, yeah.
He would do very well. So back to prior to the Goodrow tragedy, they were looking for forwards anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were looking to add to the group anyway. And so, of course they're now without Goodrow, they're even more looking for forwards, yet I'm sure they must look at those goals for and go, oh, really? Those young kids have really taken a step this year.
They have.
They've got some good young players. Marchenko is a hell of a player. Kent Johnson is coming along. Voronkov is a monster. Like they've got some good young pieces there.
Yeah. So just to tie a bow on it, Olivier with 10 goals, 7 assists, 43 games. So that's a unique skill set.
Terror. And an absolute terror. One of the toughest guys in the league.
As we're describing that, I'm thinking again, we had a good chuckle last podcast about Wendell Clark describing how he used to punch straight through to the back of the helmet. Like, come on. I told my buddies your reaction and telling that story again on the weekend. They're like, he actually said that? I'm like, yeah, he said that.
Yeah, it's horrifying. It really is, man.
All right, let's wrap up headlines with some thoughts on the Seattle Kraken. I want to hear what you see. It does feel like something is going to give there. You can look at some of their contractual stuff, and Yanni Gourde's name has been out there, and there are other pieces that Ronnie Francis may consider. If you're looking for something more dramatic, speculation around Francis and all that, okay, whatever. I look to the offseason for that. I've got a bunch of theories I'm not going to bore anybody with on this, and how much influence there is from other areas outside of the office of the general manager when it comes to the Kraken. But 3 wins in 13 games, 10 points out of a wild card. So tell me, I mean, what are you seeing there?
Well, it's funny that the decisions you make in the free agent market are significant, right? Because those are your big money acquisitions. Right out of the expansion draft, they drafted 3 goalies, and then they signed Philip Grubauer to a 6-year deal as a free agent. They probably didn't need to do that, but their decision was they thought that he could really solidify their goaltending. He's been a mess. This is year 4. He's not had one good year yet. So that's a miss. Burakovsky's supposed to add offense. That's been a miss. Chandler Stevenson was a 7-year deal, and while I think he leads the team in assists, they were hoping for a little more from him. And the reason those are so important for a team like Seattle, a new team, is you don't have a prospect pool. Like, by definition, you're a new team. You have no prospect pool. The prospect pool takes time to develop. So they're kind of caught halfway between here a little bit. They're waiting for some of their young draft picks to maybe catch hold. They ask a lot out of Matty Beniers. Maybe Beniers probably is a number 2, not a number 1 center when he gets to maturity. That's
Okay.
why Stevenson was so important. Like, they have Beniers, Shane Wright, 2 kids, and you hope they're going to be at the top of your chart, and it's a lot to ask at that position. The one young guy that they've had that's done a tremendous job, I think he's really good, is Riker Evans, the defenseman. That kid, he can skate, he's a player. But like I said, they kind of seem to be halfway between this veteran group, this developing group, and it's not been a good year. It's been a disappointing year for them. They thought when they brought in Dan Bylsma that they would generate a little more offense, and it just hasn't happened. I do think that Gord's probably one of those guys they'll acquire some assets for. I mean, he's in the last year, I believe, of his deal, and he'd be a really good 3 center on a lot of teams.
Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Everyday value with every bite. Say hello to Tim Selects. Starting at only $2.99, try one or try our full lineup of warm, delicious options. Tim Selects, everyday value that's here to stay. Order them on the Tim's app today. It's time for Tim's.
All right, pleased to be joined on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast by Los Angeles Kings starting goaltender Darcy Kuemper. So, well, first of all, thanks for doing this. You're coming off a 1-0 loss to the Edmonton Oilers on Monday night, Darcy, but didn't that game in Edmonton have that playoff type of feel? And I know that sounds cliche because we're just past the midpoint of the year, but midpoint of the season, but you make 29 saves. Stuart Skinner makes 30. As I said, you fall just short, but that one had a little bit extra juice in it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was, it was a tight game, obviously. It's a big rivalry that's developed over the last few years. This is obviously my first year involved in it, and this was our second game now against them, and you can just feel that intensity, that focus, days leading up to the game, and then the puck drops, and you can tell everyone's engaged from both sides, and like you said, playoff feel, tight, right down to the stretch, and unfortunately we just we couldn't find one to get to overtime.
Darcy, you mentioned, first time in the rivalry they've played in the playoffs 3 years in a row. It's like almost like the passage of spring. How surprised were you when you got dealt this summer? That was a big deal. That was like, there's not many 1-for-1 trades anymore, and it seems like a deal that both teams have really benefited a great deal from.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked because I hadn't really heard a lot of build up to it. There'd been some rumors right after the season. Then I hadn't heard anything for probably over a month. And when it happened, I was super excited that I was through the Kings, obviously being in the organization before, and knowing how well I felt like I fit into that team before, and kind of a fresh start, new opportunity. So I was super excited, surprised definitely, but it kind of added some juice to my off season.
Now, most of us don't think about you guys very much because you're goalies, and we're busy doing our thing. And everybody, I know when I got traded, there was this a new system, a new style, new teammates, new line mates, and what's it like for a goalie that goes, you go from the east to back to the west, where you're somewhat familiar, I guess, but what's it like for a goalie to go to a completely new place, to a team that plays a completely different way?
I think I've been traded once in the middle of the season, and that was really difficult for the first few games. I think getting traded in the off season, you get a full training camp and some preseason games. Even with the returning players training camp, you're going through the systems, you're refreshing everything. So that made it a lot easier. As a goalie jumping in the middle of the season through a trade, I found pretty difficult because all of a sudden shots are coming from new locations, different spots of the ice are open. So it changes your reads big time. But you just try to adjust as quick as you can. I'm sure as a player too, you're playing with new line mates and you're just trying to figure them out the fastest you can. You're probably talking all the time, talking with the coaches, talking with the D-men, and just figure it out on the go.
More good news. It sounds like Darcy coming way of the Los Angeles Kings. Drew Doughty expected to be on the ice next week in a non-contact sweater, but that's a huge step forward to his return. And management of the Kings suggests that Doughty could be back in the lineup right before the Four Nations Faceoff. So you're looking at somewhere around the 8th, 9th, 10th of February. Talk about the type of boost that Drew Doughty is going to bring to an already impressive group in LA.
Yeah, I mean, you add a Hall of Famer to your lineup, it's a huge boost. When we saw him go down, that obviously it was extremely tough for our lineup, just as a friend to see anyone go through an injury like that. But for him to be coming close, you can kind of feel the excitement when you see him around the rink now, and he's going out on the ice on his own, and it makes the group excited. I'm sure once we get him onto an actual practice, there'll be a lot of energy out there, and then to get him back for the break will be awesome.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what is the volume of practice when Drew steps back?
Yeah, there'll be a little bit more banter for sure. The competitiveness will get raised, definitely. Any sort of battle drill, he likes to win, so it makes it fun.
When he went out, Darcy, like a lot of these guys maybe you haven't seen up close, certainly not behind them as the goaltender. Who did you not know about on your defense that had to take more minutes, that, you know, with Drew out, that you're like, oh my God, he's way better than I thought, or I didn't even know about him?
Honestly, all of them. I mean, a big name that sticks out is Mikey Anderson. Just the ability to step up and be a shutdown guy for us. He's playing against huge minutes, him and Gavrikov together, and huge minutes together against the top players from every team, and just doing an incredible job with it. And then you go down the lineup, and it's just everyone's had to fill up more minutes, play different roles, and everyone's done such a good job of managing it by committee. Obviously, you can't replace Drew, so it takes all 6-7 guys that we've been dressing to fill that role.
When I look at players that I always wanted to play like but never could, Pavel Datsyuk was the one before. It's Andrei Kopitar now. I just watch him play, even at his age. I'm like, he's just so freaking good, like everywhere. When you watch him day after day, what makes Kopitar just so steady? So, like, why can he do that? I mean, he doesn't race around the ice. He's like in the right place every time.
Yeah, he's just such a smart player, and he's, I think what's helped him be so consistent, obviously he's an incredible talent, but he goes out there and plays winning hockey. He just plays the right way, regardless of the situation. It's just night in, night out, and I think that feeds down through a whole lineup. He's one of those leaders that don't come around very often, and everyone respects him, looks up to him, and then when he's playing that way, it kind of makes the whole lineup have to also play responsible, and then he's still getting a point per game almost.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. It's awesome for us, and it's just fun to be able to play with a guy like that.
So we're inside a month now from the Four Nations Faceoff in Montreal and Boston, and it's been interesting to get the perspective of some of the players that didn't make it, forwards, defense, goaltenders like yourself, and the feedback that, they've got a little bit more jump, a little bit more motivation, given the fact that they're right on that line. I mean, only 3 goalie spots, but do you feel the same way? Do you feel like, I kind of, with all due respect to the 3 guys that were named to Team Canada, you've had a pretty good year. You were definitely in that final cut and in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They had to make the decision early in the season. I was injured at the time, actually, when the team was picked, and it would have been a huge honor to be named to the team, obviously, and definitely was disappointing not to be named, but they made the decisions they made. It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, Darcy, I've wondered this about guys that win Stanley Cups, and you've got whatever memorabilia from your win in Colorado. It was so cool to see you win, by the way. That was just so awesome. But do you ever walk by the little mini Stanley Cup or look at your ring and go, damn, I won the Stanley Cup? Like it's a pretty pretty rare group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Actually, just this Christmas, my wife put together a photo album of the whole playoff run and the win, and just going through that again was probably my most recent walk down memory lane of everything that happened. A few years ago now. It seems like yesterday, but it's very cool. It's something that you carry with you for life, I guess, and such special times that will be really hard to ever replicate, I guess. Even if you do it again, I think the first one would be the most special for sure. And it's just cool going back and looking at it, and like you said, being in that group.
Well, it would be nice to do it again, though, wouldn't it? I mean, like, geez, what a tough problem to have.
I mean, once you win one, you want to win another one. I'll tell you that much. It's a feeling that you kind of become addicted to, just that feeling of winning. And you just some people might be like, oh, you got your cup and that's good. I feel like most people that have won it are like, I want another one. Let's go do it again.
We'll leave you. Yeah, no kidding. We'll leave you with this. I mean, in Edmonton last night for the game, not that far away from your hometown in Saskatchewan, home city. Did you have a bunch of family, a bunch of friends that come in, or all quiet?
Usually the both games in Alberta, I have quite a few friends and family that were there. So I saw some friends after the game. It was good to see them. We flew out right after, so it was just a short visit. But it's always nice playing those Alberta games because I know I have lots of people in the crowd.
Good deal. Well, thanks for doing this. We appreciate you taking the time to do it on the road, and all the best in the second half.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, awesome, Darcy. Thanks.
All right, Raymond, there's Darcy Kuemper of the Los Angeles Kings joining us this week on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And we didn't gloss over it, but, I mean, talk about a shot in the arm. There's so much trade speculation, percolating everywhere, right? 'Tis the season. But then you get a piece back like Drew Doughty. And again, they're aiming, they're hoping, they're targeting for the week leading into the Four Nations Faceoff. I mean, it isn't cliche to say that is going to feel like a mega trade, getting a player like that back into the mix.
When he went out, I didn't think they were going to be able to wallpaper over that. And they did better than that. Like, it's one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And you play against them, it seems like it's murder to try and get a scoring chance. They check, they're big. Darcy has given them exceptional goaltending. And then he did make mention about Drew is such a competitive player. Like, it's not just getting a good player back, it's getting like a big dog back. Like, he's like, there's a lot of the unseen intangible that some players just have. Like, you can try and describe it, but some players just have it and others don't. And he's been a great yin and yang to Kopitar's leadership. Like, they lead very differently, and this will be a great thing for the Kings to get him back, get him a couple of weeks to get up to speed, and he will be a terrific addition for them.
So I was asked, I've got to answer a quiz question as part of the Toronto Maple Leafs regional broadcast tonight, Tuesday night. The belief is that Connor Hellebuyck, of course, is on track to win the Vezina again, and would be just the second unanimous winner of the Vezina since the voting began back in '82. So Steve Dryden is asking, who is the second best goalie? And I went with Darcy Kuemper. Now, your choices would be Jacob Markstrom, Mackenzie Blackwood, Logan Thompson would be another name, but Kuemper's been impressive, right? 12-3-5, 9-2-3 save percentage.
I'd go Logan Thompson right now.
All right.
I watched him on the weekend or 2 weeks ago, and it's hard to believe this guy was not drafted, was in the East Coast League, and when Vegas had 43 injuries, Kelly McCrimmon knew him from Brandon and signed him, and like, he's really good.
He is, yeah.
But I mean, the top 5 or 6 goalies in the league, you look at their numbers, and in a year where save percentage is regressing,
Mm-hmm.
There are guys that have tremendous stats, and Kuemper, Darcy's one of them. Kuemper, Ottinger, Blackwood, since he went to Colorado, Markstrom. Who's been amazing is Dustin Wolf in Calgary.
Terrific.
He's in the Calder race for sure. And then, of course, Hellebuck's, lapping the field. Kevin Lankinen in Vancouver, so it's a weird position, but if you've got it, man, you're pretty comfortable. And the Kings are really comfortable with Kuemper. He's had a great year.
Yeah, and contractually, we'll be talking about Lankinen and Logan Thompson, right? Two young guys. Yep. Well, not overly young, but in that same category age-wise, but in need of a contract, and both putting up some terrific numbers.
Yeah.
So in a good spot. All right, buddy. So it's Tuesday. What's your travel week look like?
Flying to Denver tomorrow. Got the Oilers and the Avs on Thursday. Unfortunately, Edmonton is in Minnesota the day before. I love when those teams like that are rested, and because the McDavid, Draisaitl, Rantanen, McKinnon thing that's really fun to watch, right? But they're coming from Mini, so they'll have a little bit of a hurdle to climb. But that's it. And then I got the game on the weekend as well here in Vancouver. So good week. Yeah. You got regional tonight and insider trading and the whole rigmarole, I'm sure.
Whole rigmarole. Actually, getting on an airplane. Haven't been on
good
one
for
in a
you.
while. Yeah, going to Winnipeg. Winnipeg.
That's
I'm going to do the Winnipeg regional game on Thursday.
And then you're going to the Cabbage.
Yeah. Already rented my 4x4. All my buddies out there quickly said, hey, don't mess around here. There's too much snow. The weather's a little sketchy. Just get the 4x4 truck and make sure that you've got the power behind it. So I'm set.
There you go.
Friday morning.
You like that too.
I'll be zipping to the valley. It's going to be tremendous. Can't wait.
Well, have a great week. Have a great week.
All right, buddy.
Fishing. Come on.
I'll report
Enjoy
back,
it,
not Thursday, but the following Thursday. How's that?
And do not fail. You have a job in Winnipeg.
Okay,
do not fail. I want those pens.
Oh, the Delta Blue pens. I'm all over it.
I love those pens. You get on it.
All right, buddy.
Thanks for listening,
Check
everybody.
back later this week. And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make this podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and our good friends at Acon. Thanks for listening, watching, everybody. Until next time, stay safe.